Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Anyone have unsettling stories about strangers or strange people at work? When I was 8 years old, I was walking home from school when some car pulls up next to me. A man rolls down his window. He motions his hand for me to come over. "Hey kid, your mom told me to pick you up from school." I'm a really stupid kid, but I knew this didn't feel right. Immediately I bolt through the forest to my house. I can't tell if he's following me. I'm too scared to tell my parents. I never see him again. Years later, I ask my mom if she would ever send someone to pick me up. She says never.
Be me. Working at a gas station, weird dude works there. We will call him Dave. Something obviously off about Dave. The owner says Dave is just mentally slow. Whatever.x. Working shift one evening with a female coworker. It's about 30 minutes before my shift ends and another hour and a half for her. Decide to take the trash out while my coworker helps the customers. Wasn't in the mood to deal with them. Get to the dumpsters and hear heavy breathing. Dave came from around the corner like he was trying to sprint but stopped when he saw me. Isn't, insert coworker's name here, supposed to take out the trash tonight, Anon? Tell him I took it out for her. He looks visibly disappointed and walks past me, then goes behind the wall of the dumpster. The dumpsters were surrounded by a 3-sided wall and a gate to get in and out. Notice right as he walks past me that he has gloves on. Middle of summer. His car was parked behind the wall, out of view unless you went behind it. He drives off and I call my boss. Boss finds blue rope where Dave was hiding. Dave didn't come back to work after that and I quit a month later.
Be a 20-year-old midnight manager at a McDonald's. Lock the doors at midnight every time because I'm the only manager willing to work the damn shift. One night before the lockup, the service girl says an old dude is sleeping out in the lobby. Decide to pass by and ask him if he's all right. Just says yeah and goes back to sleep. Screw it, dude's like 90, what do I care? About 2 a.m. he saunters up to the counter. I mean like a goddamn bow-legged cowboy. Asks whose red car that is outside. Says he's expecting trouble and wants to know if it's one of ours. Ask the other 2 people there and yeah, it's ours. Smiles, then asks if I can walk him to his car. Kinda creeped out at this point, so I tell him I'll do it after handling the one car and drive through. But into drive-through's business, help out, then tell them to watch the lot camera. Head on out. Make sure he's about 5 feet ahead. "Brisk one," he says. "It's winter, but I got a good cold tolerance, so I don't give a damn and say, yeah, not too bad." Got my eyes on him and on the sides of the building. It's at least 50 meters to either side, so I'll see someone coming. The only way anyone's jumping me is if they jump off the roof. Train signals start going off. I stop about 15 feet from his van while he circles around to the driver's side. He fumbles with his key for a while. Signals still going. I don't hear any trains coming. He stops and starts watching the lights. This happens a lot and I tell him so. "Sure does," he replies. He unlocks his door and climbs in. I call out for him to have a good night. No answer. Whatever, go back inside. Dude sits in his van, hasn't moved a bit, for about an hour and a half while the signals go before technicians come and fix the signals. He pulls out and drives off in the direction opposite of them. Whole thing felt off after the fact. There was this tension that went nowhere.
About 25 years ago, family cookout at grandparents'. Everyone is eating, socializing, and having a good time. I'm about 7 years old at the time. Some drunk redneck comes out of nowhere, shambles up the driveway, just stands and stares at family. Dad is a cop, always armed. Uncle is a former boxer, tough dude. Grandpa is a World War II vet and auto mechanic, tough as nails. None of them do anything. They all appear to become worried and quiet. Drunk just stands there leering, "Adults, move us kids away." Drunk proceeds to pass out right on the picnic table. No one says anything, parents move everything inside. I remember asking Dad why he didn't arrest the bad man. Says not to worry about it, stay inside. Parents all come inside and appear to get very quiet. I remember them talking in the kitchen. Mom keeps asking, "Why did he come back?" I remember Dad saying, "Don't worry about it, he'll leave soon." Watch out the window as the drunk wakes up all at once. Flips the solid wood picnic table with one hand like it was nothing, and sends food flying everywhere. makes direct eye contact with me through the window, has an insane grin on his face. I still remember how crazed his face looked. Eventually, he just walks away into the woods out back, never to be seen again. For years, I never understood why the adults were so scared of this guy, especially my dad, who was armed and could have had dozens of his cop buddies there in a heartbeat. Instead, he hid inside like a coward and let this random dude trash our yard. Grandpa and Uncle have both passed on a couple years ago. Ask my dad WTF that even all those years ago was about. His eyes lit up when I asked if he had just remembered it, then immediately claimed he doesn't remember anything like that ever happening. I clearly remember it happening, and so does my brother, who was 12 at the time. Mother also claims it never happened.
It's probably some cray-cray black sheep family member they don't want to talk about.
Be me, 7 or 8 years old. My group of friends, about 5 of us, investigate abandoned plots, since that's what kids enjoy doing at that age apparently. The older kid, the leader of the group, tells everyone how there is a werewolf at this place. I'm immediately scared, but sort of intrigued too. We spot paw prints in the mud leading into the building. All of us are even more scared and excited. Pretty dark inside, although I stand right at the entrance in case shit goes down. There's a voice of a man coming from the inside, speaking mostly gibberish, but can make out that he's calling us in. The older kid tells us to go to him, but stays out back. None of us move. The older kid keeps telling us to go to the man. The man's voice goes silent. The older kid begins shoving us forward. We're all pretty scared and confused. We see his figure come toward us. I rushed out, never looking back. Go straight to my house. Later, I found out that all the other kids followed my lead when I freaked out. The older kid made fun of us for being scared, so we went again the next day, but found a pool of sticky liquid at the entrance, so didn't go in.
My buddy works as a manager in a gas station down by the beach in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. This happened a few months ago. Be my buddy, chilling at work because it's like midnight and nobody's coming in lately. Suddenly a blonde woman is by the drinks, eyeing what she wants. Whatever, just didn't hear her come in. Goes about his business. Woman comes up with nothing to buy, making small talk. Clearly drunk by the smell of her breath, but seems coherent enough. Is also clearly Russian according to her accent. WTF are you doing in my state, you commie bastard.jpg? After a few minutes of learning his name and getting chatty, she starts trying to get him to come outside with her, acting like it's the most important thing in the world that he leave the store. Buddy says no, gotta be responsible, and watch the store girl pouts, leaves. Whatever, end of that weirdness. Girl comes back again less than an hour later with a bag of McDonald's for him and begs him to come out of the store, not specifying where. Buddy says nah again. The girl leaves after getting to know him a bit more. She comes back for the next 3 days at random times, always when the store is empty. Buddy never sees her again after the 3rd day. Not exactly supernatural, but it reminds me of those spooky stories where the gas station attendants meet women that try to get them to leave the store. I told him he was smart to not leave the store, but also an idiot because she was smoking hot apparently, and it sounded like his life could have been a chapter in a good Haruki Murakami book. Or he could have gotten murdered and kidnapped.
I work at a science and art museum. My job is to walk around and teach visitors about exhibits and help them out. On the floor one day, sitting down at an exhibit, and suddenly see a very old woman, really filthy with dirt and leaves in her hair, rolling around in an electric wheelchair and crying. She wheels away to a part of the museum I'm not covering, and it's security's job to deal with stuff like that, not mine, so I forget it. Hours later, manning the outside area. The museum is constructed on a pier over a bay, with another co-worker. It's the end of the day, and the museum is fairly empty. She wheels out of the doors from the inside and rolls over to the fence overlooking the bay. Think she's just admiring the view, so ignore it. Suddenly notice she is gripping the fence and desperately pulling herself out of her wheelchair, which is hard given that her legs seemed completely limp. She's hoisting herself onto the fence. She's trying to jump into the bay. Hear her crying. My co-worker runs over to her and helps her back into her wheelchair. She tells him that someone cut her open and filled her with leaves and a bomb. She's crying so hard she can barely talk. She says she has a bomb inside of her and it's going to blow up. We both ran away and radio security to tell them what's happening and give them her location. We're looking through the glass door and watch a security guard come out and talk to her. We fill in a lost visitor report and alert the other people on the floor because clearly she had to have come with someone. Security says that it looks safe and that we should go help with the lost visitor process. A very well-dressed old man is eventually found who says he is her husband. They are reunited and they immediately leave the museum. Still confuses me to this day.
11 years old. Had a gang of misfits. We would always plan on getting rich. We had metal detectors that didn't work, etc. Anyway, on the school bus, we always passed by a big empty field of grass with a little house in the very far distance. At the time, we assumed it was abandoned. So I talked my gang into raiding the home for some things we could sell or pawn off. We headed on down to the house. The house is big and old, but we eventually found a room that looked like it was being used. Creepy pink wallpaper that looked like it was put up recently. A dirty mattress laid on the floor and a camera was facing across. Old blood spots, along with some scattered clothes. I started to get nervous because I didn't want to make this journey in vain. Steal the camera. Convince the gang to let me keep it for the night and we'll pawn it tomorrow. That night, check it out. Absolutely nothing on this camera. Whatever was on it must have been cleared out. Pawn the camera the next day. A week later, I heard on the news that the old house in the field was burned down and nothing was left. To this day, I wonder what kind of messed up shit was going on in that house.
This happened on my birthday this year. Be me. Be at the street corner. Waiting for the bus with friends in the city. What is taking so long? Messing with my phone until I hear a tapping noise behind me. Turn to the source. See white-haired skinny guy staring intently at me. Tapping his long-ass fingernails on the parking meter. Tap, tap, tap. He's got these moldy clothes on, and his hair is matted with greasy-ass dreads. Got marks on his face from scratching. I think he's a homeless guy just trying to pass time, but he's staring right at me. Something ain't right. Scoob.ping. Friends notice. Maybe he wants to fight us. Turn away, but keep checking ever so often to make sure he isn't around. Tap, tap, tap. I don't want to take my eyes off of him for too long. Tap, tap, tap. The other bus comes on his side. It's like a switch turned off. He stops tapping, turns heel and hops on the bus as normal. Watch him as he leaves. I can still see his long-ass fingernails holding the door as he walked up the steps. I could have sworn he looked back, but I probably imagined it. Our bus comes shortly after. Friends joke about it on the way home. I just want to forget about it. I felt like I just got cursed.
Worked at a Jack in the Box during the graveyard shift and surprisingly ran into only a few strange incidents. In particular, there was this homeless dude who hung out in the area for a while, though he may not have been homeless. I think someone took care of him in one of the neighborhoods. He just liked to go out at night or during the day at all hours. He was always relatively clean and dressed okay, just very off. First time around 2 or 3 a.m. the lobby is closed and the lights are off in the lobby. Getting ready to mop, cleaning a bunch, relatively slow night. Cleaning something, turn around. Dude is standing in the lobby staring at the menu. Freak out, though doors were locked. Approach guy, he tries to order, tell him we're closed but willing to take his order through the drive-thru if he wants, he just has to leave. Says he doesn't have any money, offers to barter this cheap tiny stereo. Tell him it's cool, give him a burger and something else I think. He takes off making sure the doors are completely closed this time, second time. He approaches the drive-thru window, like 3 a.m. He wants food and offers to barter again. Tell him it's cool, hook him up with a burger and some fries. Places this pebble on the drive-thru window area, says it's a fossil, a tooth from a mountain lion. Takes off, last time. Around 10 p.m. I walked past CVS on my way to work. Dude is out front wielding a hockey stick, shouting randomly at people. Turns to me with a hockey stick suddenly. Shouts, "Hey, Mission Impossible, where are you going?" To work. He asks me for a quarter. Tell him I don't have one, he just says all right, then continues shouting at people waving his hockey stick. Didn't see him for a while after that, then saw him on the bus a few times and walking around the neighborhood, but he didn't go by my store again.
Be 7 years old. Go to Boston on a family Easter trip. Brother starting to look at colleges. Stay in a swell hotel. There's a game room complete with Sega, N64, PlayStation, and every game you can imagine. Not allowed to have any of those in our house, so I take every opportunity to go to the room. So much that the manager gave me a keycard to access it when I wanted. Easter Day. Having breakfast, the entire dining hall is decorated. Several people dressed as rabbits, and lots of kids. Some sort of inner city feed the youth program. After I'm done eating, I zoom down to the game room, turn PS, then hear a sound coming from the adjacent room. Muffled talking, but something like, "It's okay, it's fine." The door into the other room swings open. It's one of the rabbits from upstairs, half-dressed and looking really tired. Behind him, a young kid, younger than me, steps out and gives me a helpless glance. I could see he looked scared or hurt. The rabbit guy looks at me, "Don't look in there," and puts his rabbit mask back on and walks out. Too spooked to play.
I work in a prison. There's a lot of really weird people, specifically inmates. One night, while working the night shift, we had a call on the radio to take an inmate to holding because he was acting aggressively towards the officer on duty. When we got there to roll him up, he was chanting in tongues. While restraining him, he said, "These chains will not hold to the strength of Sathanas," who I later found out is the Christian demon of wrath. While escorting him up to the holding cell, his chanting grew more intense, almost as if casting some sort of incantation. When he was done chanting, he fell silent, and moments afterward it started to rain and thunder. He was being very aggressive towards our lieutenant and almost assaulted an officer while we were undoing his restraints. We ended up putting him in therapeutic restraints, and eventually he calmed down. While searching his bunk and locker, I found a bunch of books on Satanism and witchcraft. Among several satanic drawings and writings, it was interesting. The guy is back in the general population, and I've seen him attend several Christian religious services since the incident. I don't have any more creepy stories about inmates, but I have plenty of creepy stories about the penitentiary in general. Here's a quick one. Be working night shift in a tower. 300 hours, clear sky, moon is bright. Chilling, talking on the phone with another tower officer. His tower overlooks the old graveyard on the hill known as Grasshopper Hill, where we used to bury dead inmates who didn't have family to do so. Stopped doing it around 1950s. All of a sudden, he stops mid-sentence and says that there's people walking around Grasshopper Hill. Turns on his spotlight and points it towards the graveyard. Nobody there. He calls the lieutenant's office about it, and they send 2 officers up there to check it out. Nobody there. A lot of the senior staff members say they've experienced the same thing several times while working in that tower. I'm bored, so I'll write some more. Again, working third shift in a housing unit. Chilling, playing chess with another officer. It's about 1:30, time to do my hourly checks. Walk the galleries, look into cells, make sure all my inmates are still alive. Walk past C-17, the room where an inmate was brutally murdered a few years prior. Suddenly I get a horrible sense of dread, which doesn't fade until I walk off the gallery. Shake it off. Figure it's just a bit of paranoia. As I'm walking off the gallery, a stack of chairs randomly falls over in the day room. Later call the video surveillance officer and ask him to take a look at the C gallery day room at around 1:30. He sent me a copy of the video footage at around that time. Looks like the stack of chairs were thrown onto the floor by an unseen force. I hate working that unit alone on the third shift. Here's one more. This one's pretty interesting, so I'm not going to greentext it. Again, I was working third shift as a yard officer. It was around 23 hours at the start of shift when I decided to do my area checks. Basically, that entails going to every unoccupied building in the facility and making sure the doors are secured, basic security things. I was walking near the back of the chapel, an old church-like building, built around 1945 or so, to my knowledge. I had heard stories about how they used to carry out death sentences by hanging behind the chapel. Underneath the stage, there's these crazy dungeon-like holding cells, and according to the legend, that's where the inmates would spend their final hours in preparation for their executions. As I walked towards the rear door of the chapel, I heard boom, boom, boom on the rear door, as if somebody was running towards the door and putting their shoulder to it in an attempt to open it. I radioed another yard officer and told her to bring the chapel keys to me. We searched the building and didn't see or find anything.
Be a hotel bellman in a big metropolitan area. Working night shift on a Friday. Best people watching ever shift. A typical night full of drunks, hookers, parties, breakups, a bit of everything. 3:30 a.m. the beginning to the slow stretch. Standing outside talking to one of my valets. A 7 out of 10 blonde walks up and starts talking to me. Valet takes a car down. The blonde is in a party dress, she has no shoes on and has been crying. Make typical small talk to guests. She then starts asking me if I think she's pretty. Do you want me? What would you do with me? What time are you off? I'm the king of bullshitting as a bellman, so I can roll with it and deflect. She says I'm nice and gives me $5. Pauses for a bit. Jumps in front of a passing car. Was weird as hell. She didn't die, but I never saw her again, and she wasn't registered at my hotel. Cops said she was on a few different drugs when I talked to them down the line.
Go to a house party one night. Me and my friends start heading back about 2 a.m. because we're the only ones from out of the area. Walk the country roads, cut it down to about 6 miles. Stop about halfway to smoke. Cigarettes, not weed. Talk about how spooky the roads are at that time and how anyone could be watching. Friend asks who would be out somewhere that remote at that time on the off chance that some jabroni would be coming past. Agree with him. Guy suddenly walks past on the other side of the road. Ask if we have a light. Stop in the middle of the road. Crosses back over, gives a thumbs up, hops over a fence and starts walking through a field. It was more surreal than anything.
Be me 14. Hiking through the mountainside with my cousin and uncle, walking down a basic pathway, no trees or anything to get in the way. Getting dark, so my cousin turns on the flashlight. Get a heart attack as some dude is standing less than a foot from us. He didn't react to the million candlelight shined in his face. Calmly says, "Good evening, fellas." Cousin and uncle have some idle chat with him, having a laugh. Ask him where he's going. His smile fades. He says he's going to fall down as always. Get weirded out and laugh awkwardly. Begin to make our way down. Only a second passed when I turned back to see if he was there. The guy is nowhere to be seen. He didn't jump or fall because we would have seen it happen. Cousin is convinced that he was a ghost. Uncle thinks he was playing a joke.
Be 6 years old. I used to go to Grandma's house most of the days. An old man lives with her. Short-haired, blue-eyed man that used to stay at the backyard most of the time. Sometimes he would make me sit on his lap and talk about frogs. Would also take me to the store and buy me some ice cream. Although he was very kind, never developed affection for this guy. Time passes and he just vanishes from Earth. Years later, I notice his absence. Ask Grandma and Mom about him. No one recalls knowing that old man living with Grandma. What the hell, man? I still remember his face and the gray shirt he used to wear. My guess is that he was arrested for abuse, and my grandma hid it from me. Not so spooky, but wanted to share it anyway.
I have one from when I was little. Be me, about 5 or 6. Rare night that Mom is home from work. Sister's asleep, Dad gone somewhere. Summer, so we have the windows open because we have no air conditioner. My mom and I are sitting on the couch, me watching her as she plays Super Mario Brothers. Curtains behind the couch start moving. We figure it's from a breeze. A few minutes later, a man's hand comes through the open window and grabs me, trying to pull me out. Mom goes ballistic and grabs me with one hand and pulls out a pocket knife, then starts stabbing the arm. Hear a guy scream, hand lets go, and we hear running footsteps outside on the gravel moving away from our house. She calls the police while running to the girls' room to check on them. Police show up, find a wet spot right underneath the window where the guy was at the side of the house. Find a blood trail as well, but lose it. I stay up all night too scared to sleep because I was afraid someone would try and get me. A lot of weird stuff happened in that house, but that was one of the weirder things to happen. I have a few more. Here's one. A few years after the window incident, nighttime. A few cousins are staying over while our dads go out all night fishing. Our moms are babysitting us. Around 12-ish, I and 2 of the older ones are sitting in the living room taking turns playing Golden Axe. Hear something hit the oil drum outside. Figure it might be feral cats or something. Happens a few more times. The 3 of us figure we'll grab a flashlight and go outside to see what it is. Load up, go out the back door and turn on the light and cast the light over to where the drum sits. See a figure wearing stilts just standing there with a stick in their hand. Looked like a clown, makeup and weird wig and all that jazz. He looks over at us, stares for a few seconds, then starts stilt walking towards us and swinging the stick. The 3 of us flip out and start screaming and running back in the house. This wakes everyone up, and we start trying to talk over each other to tell our moms what happened. Something smacks the back door hard. One of the moms walks over to it like a dipshit and pushes it open real fast. She doesn't see anything, Goes to turn around when the clown steps out from behind the door and smacks her in the head with the stick. She drops like a rock. He starts bending down. We start losing our minds while our moms do the same, except for mine and another. My mom runs into her bedroom to grab her gun. The other runs for the living room to grab hers from her purse. One of the others runs for the phone and calls 911. Clown is just standing there looking down at my aunt, then starts beating her with the stick. Both my mom and the other one are back about a minute later. Draw beads on the guy and yell at him to stop. Clown stops, looks at the two of them, smiles, then starts beating her again. Mom's fire warning shots doesn't seem to faze him. Mom decides screw it, shoots the clown center mass and knocks him down. Clown hits the ground and grunts, then lays there for a few minutes. Moms have their guns trained on him, and we can hear sirens getting closer. Clown sits up, looks at them, then reaches down and undoes the straps on the stilts, then takes off running. Moms were too dumbstruck to really react. Cops get there maybe 2 minutes later. A few stay with us while a K-9 officer and a few others take off after the guy. They find the guy not too far away and arrest him. Come to find out he'd been doing shit like that all over town and the surrounding areas while he was high as balls on PCP and wearing a bulletproof vest. So yeah, that's my encounter with Dr. Roxo's younger PCP-using brother.
Be about 13. Live in a fairly safe community. Third safest community in California. One day, walking my Doberman, Warlock. Yes, there's a difference, they're larger than normal Dobes. He's a glorified lapdog, but he's scary. Walking through the park with Dobie as some random dude also walking on the park trail comes by. Stops me to see if he can pet the dog. Not unusual since everyone always wants to pet my dog. Let him and it's cool. Starts talking to me about how he works in the movie industry, etc. Says he knows my dad through the movie industry and says I look familiar. Dad works as a cameraman, so I completely buy it at first. Start asking him questions because I'm genuinely interested in what he might do and how he knows my dad. Replies with being a voice actor. Instantly, I smell bullshit. My father has never worked on anything which has used a voice actor. Alert as hell now. Keep listening to the guy. He starts doing cartoon impressions fairly well. It clicks. He's good at cartoon impressions because to children this is entertaining. I am technically a kid. He went to see if he could pet my dog to see if he was dangerous. Instantly tell him I have to leave. Tries to convince me that he needs help with something before I go and if I'd be willing to help him. Tell him I'm busy and really have to get going. Tell my parents about what happened. The same guy came into our neighborhood earlier and was doing the same cartoon impressions in front of brother and his group of friends trying to lure them too. Brother friend's older swole AF cousin comes outside while this is happening. Loses his shit on the dude. Guy books it. Went through what was a trail towards the park to get away. Where he saw me. Report this shit to the police. Turns out he's a sex offender. I felt really stupid about it was pure luck and coincidence that he was able to guess my dad was in the motion picture industry.
I moved into a flat above a shop. The landlord is mid-40s, owns a shop underneath. Go to the shop one day to pay rent. He's sitting in a chair, motionless, hands on his knees, staring at nothing. The shop is silent. Looks like he's kinda asleep with his eyes open. He sees me, jumps up, and all is normal. Over the past few weeks, I've been in the shop to see him 10+ times. He's always sitting in the same position with his hands on his knees, staring at nothing. I joke one day, "You look like you haven't moved since last time I came in." He laughs. Now, every time I go in, he says, "I'm still sitting here. I haven't moved." I swear, he freaks me out. It's like he's a robot. He just sits there looking forward to all day. There's no TV or radio or nothing. I can't understand how he just sits there doing nothing.
Working as a runner for a law firm. Get handed a package to take to a client's house. Told that I have to make sure it lands in his hands. Do not drop it off, etc. Drive out 45 minutes to weird suburbs in the middle of the country. Pull up to address, small house with front yard littered with children's bikes, ATVs, motorbikes, rundown cars, and even a newish-looking boat on a trailer with all the tires flat. Puddles all over the place, so I had to walk in mud to get to the front door. When I get to the front door, I smell something weird and look around at the ground. There's wet dog food all over the front steps that I somehow didn't notice as I walked up. Plant pot full of water with mosquito larvae filling it up. Start getting bitten by mosquitoes, so I ring the front doorbell. Wait a minute because I don't want to look like a creep. Then ring doorbell again. Look inside through the window next to the door. See a 3 or 4-year-old boy staring back at me from a bare living room. Inside the house, there are empty boxes all over the place and trash littering the floor. The living room has a huge flat-screen television, but otherwise looks bare. Suddenly, the kid sprints back into the hallway without coming to the door. Wait a couple more minutes expecting his parents, but no one comes. Begin to die from mosquito bites, so I leave. It was bizarre. I assume that the client must have won some big lawsuit and blown all the money on the equipment in the yard and the house. Probably the most disgusting living situation I've seen in real life. The kid made it really creepy as well.
Be a small child in an empty house in the middle of nowhere. Someone starts ringing the doorbell while I'm in the living room. No one's home, and I don't know what to do, so I freeze like a deer in headlights. Someone starts looking in through the fucking window and just stares at me. After a minute, my legs start working, and I dash back to my room to hide under the bed because I'm terrified. Nice going, Anon.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.